Oh, would you look at this? Another game that's a favorite of gamers everywhere. A game that everyone loves and reveres, hailing it as one of the greatest games of all time. And I'm gonna tear out a new one.
Banjo Kazooie is a game of legends, developed by Rare in the days before Microsoft bought and gutted them like a fish. Rare was Nintendo's bitch, developing games like the Donkey Kong Country series, GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Killer Instinct, and let's not forget about Battletoads. But now Microsoft owns them and, well, it's probably safer to say that Sonic has had a better track record than them.
And we all know that Grabbed by the Ghoulies was the start of their decline. Their games just don't get the scores that they used to.
Banjo Kazooie is a game that you can say is the precursor to game series such as Ratchet & Clank and the Jak series, which is what you could call the buddy genre. Now, someone may be lining up to say that Sonic and Tails, or even further back, Mario and Luigi, predate Banjo Kazooie. Well, that's true, but they're not buddy games. What do I mean by buddy games? Well, there's a type of movie called the buddy film, which are generally comedy movies or, in more recent times, action movies. A buddy film is a double act, like Chris Farley and David Spade in the 90s, Cheech and Chong in the 1970s and 80s, Abbott and Costello if you want to go to the 1940s and 50s, and Laurel and Hardy if you want to go back even further to the 1920s and 30s. The double act employs two characters. One is known as the straight man and the other the comedian. The straight man is usually the reasonable and serious one, while the comedian is generally unorthodox and silly. The comedian plays off the straight man with silly antics, while the straight man gets irritated or acts sarcastically to the comedian.
And that's the relationship of Banjo and Kazooie. Although Kazooie is just really a bitch to everyone because she is the straight man to the world and characters around her, while Banjo just seems to remain ignorant that his world is bonkers.
But what's unique is that this game doesn't take itself all that seriously. In fact, it knows that it's a game, as Mumbo Jumbo refers to himself as the most powerful shaman in the game, and the characters seem to take the plight of a little girl very lightly. The story is that Gruntilda the Witch, who is the equivalent to morbidly obese fat women who insist on wearing tank tops that cover nothing, and short shorts with the word juicy spelled out on the ass which stretches out the word so it's unreadable, that you see hanging out at the mall on Friday nights because even nightclubs have standards, borrows from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Gruntilda asks her cauldron if she's the prettiest in the land, it tells her yes, then changes its mind and says that Tootie, Banjo's little sister, is. So she kidnaps her to take her looks away and transfer her ugliness to Tootie, and Banjo-Kazooie have to save her.
This is a request to all sentient, talking, magical objects. Just say what your owner wants to hear. It'll spare us a lot of effort and save millions of one-ups.
The graphics are really, really good for the N64, almost pushing the limit of what the console can do. It doesn't even have the N64 fog that other games do. If Bubsy 3D is the absolute failure of cartoony graphics for the 5th generation of consoles, then Banjo-Kazooie is the opposite side of the spectrum. The music is composed very well too. Each track fits their respective level perfectly. And the way the characters control is rock solid. The controls in that aspect are perfect and there's nothing wrong with them.
Now I know I said at the beginning that I was going to tear this game a new one. After all, it wouldn't be a retro replay if I didn't find something to tear into now, would it?
The camera just sucks. I mean, it really sucks. It doesn't really follow you at all. It stays pretty stationary in one position until you move it. So you can go behind a mountain and it won't automatically move, at least not immediately. While it's simply a minor inconvenience, it's somehow incredibly annoying because it happens a lot. And it doesn't help when you get Kazooie's ability to shoot eggs, because the C buttons not only control the camera, but are also used for activating Kazooie's abilities when you use them in conjunction with the Z button. So you're going to have a bit of a hard time getting your shots in with the eggs. It's not terrible, but it does get annoying after a while.
But I'm going to be honest here, I think that the N64 controller is the worst designed controller of all time. Someone at Nintendo must have been wasted when they came up with it.
I know this is off topic and I'm not trying to sound like I'm picking on Nintendo, but come on. It looks like the retarded cousin of controllers. But yes, the camera is really the only actual flaw about this game, which was universally criticized for being bad. Because it does make it a pain in the butt to line up your jumps, because you'll need to finagle Banjo and the camera together to get the camera angle where you need it to be. It would have made more sense just to have the camera move smoothly along as you held the corresponding button down instead of moving to pre-programmed angles.
And if you're using a 360 controller like I am, be prepared to go into the first-person perspective a lot, because the C buttons are tied to the right analog stick, and that is really sensitive to the slightest move upwards.
There are people who call this game a Mario clone, Well, yes, you can look at it that way, but that's really an understatement. In my opinion, it looks and plays much better. But hey, it did come out 2 years later. Some people say it's more complex, but I don't think so, at least not by much. And this leads me to the gameplay. The goal of the game is to explore the levels, which are pretty big, and collect notes and puzzle pieces known as jiggies, to unlock levels and to proceed through the game. Each level has 10 puzzle pieces and 100 notes. And it's very non-linear. You can skip levels if you have enough puzzle pieces and musical notes. You can backtrack to old ones, and all the levels are wide open spaces, allowing for full exploration. I highly suggest using a strategy guide, because you're going to need it if you don't want to spend hours upon hours of searching for the level door after you unlock it.
As you proceed through the game, you get new abilities, and this is probably why Kazooie is such a bitch. She's the one who's doing all the work while Banjo just carries her around, the lazy bum.
But in my honest opinion, the gameplay is a little boring and tedious. Collect puzzle pieces, unlock a level. Collect notes, unlock parts of the overworld. Rinse and repeat. I did play this game in the store long ago when it first came out, and even then, I thought the gameplay was a tad monotonous. There are several ways to get puzzle pieces. You can just find them out in the open, or find them hidden somewhere in the levels. If you help an NPC, they'll give you one as a reward, or if you defeat certain enemies, they'll drop one. You can also find them in the overworld if you flip a Gruntilda switch in a level. Some things are tedious though, like having to go in and out of levels to accomplish a certain task, like being turned into a termite, leaving the level to climb the mountain in the overworld to get a puzzle piece, and then go back into the level to change back.
But that's really the example of the highest level of tediousness that this game gets. The rest of the game is not like that.
Other times you may have to backtrack to get other puzzle pieces that you can now acquire because you learned a new move. I don't mind backtracking. In fact, the Metroid Prime series are some of my favorite games, and those games, especially Metroid Prime 2, are backtracking to the extreme, but they do have more action in them, so at least there's something going on. Really, my only motivation to keep going is to see the next line of dialogue that the characters are going to say as the game progresses. Because I don't find this game to be really that much of a challenge, but the writing and dialogue is really good. It's smart, witty, and clever. It's on par with the genius writing that is in the Portal series. There's other things that you need to collect. There's 5 multicolored creatures in each of the level that you can collect to get a puzzle piece.
I really don't want to say this, but this game is just a collectathon. Although there is a but to the end of that statement.
Look, even Banjo Kazooie Nuts and Bolts made a joke at this. The character known as the Lord of Gaming says that all they do is collect useless junk. Even other reviewers such as John Tron, who loves this series, even called it a collectathon. But that's not a bad thing. The game is built around this aspect of collecting. It's not about mindless collecting, it's about the adventure, the journey from point A to point B, exploring the world and everything it has to offer, meeting all these off-the-wall cartoony characters and helping them out with whatever problems they may have. As I said earlier, there's people who compare Banjo Kazooie to Super Mario 64, to the point of calling it a clone of Mario 64, but they're wrong. Banjo Kazooie took what Mario 64 did and not only built upon it, but improved it as well, becoming what is probably one of the best platform games ever made.
I'm really glad that Banjo Kazooie came out, because without it we probably wouldn't have games like Jak, Ratchet and Clank, and Sly Cooper. So it should be no surprise when this game gets a gift from God score, because it's pretty much perfect.